Today we're going to talk about how you can use my 3-step framework for investor pitch meetings. Investors reject 92% of all startups that they meet. So let's get you into the successful 8% who get on the path to raising money. I've tested this approach with dozens of investors and they all tell me, yes, please, this is the way we want startup pitch meetings to go. So let's dive straight in. Okay, so you're excited. You got an investor meeting, hooray! Now all we need to do is tell them all about our brilliant product and they'll be convinced, right? Well, unfortunately not. The task is to get them excited about the things that they are interested in, not just by telling them, here's what we built. Only focusing on product is the number one reason that investors tell me that they reject startups in the first meeting. Let's face it, investors see loads of pitches every day, every week, every month. So you need a strategy to grab their attention by connecting with their interests and start a process towards getting funds. Here's my simple 3-step formula that will help you get that process rolling. 1. The pitch. What to tell at the beginning of the meeting to get them excited. 2. The magic question, how to transition from a pitch into a conversation. And 3, next steps, how to make sure that there is a concrete outcome of the meeting. So let's take it piece by piece. Step 1, the pitch. It's tempting to prepare a 20-minute presentation about your company history, the product, the technology, your first seed funding, the MVP launch. But I've learned that investors lose interest real quick with these long stories. I spoke to David Zwagemarker of Peak Capital, a VC here in Amsterdam, about what happens in the investor's mind in the first minutes of these startup pitch meetings. He said, in the first 2 or 3 minutes, you're putting the startup in your mind into one of 3 boxes almost without realizing it. Those 3 boxes are, first, yes, I'm excited, tell me more. Second, well, maybe, let's see how it pans out. And the dreaded third box, nope. This is not for me. And it's pretty obvious where you want to be, right? In that first box. So how do you get there? Simple. Tell them the very best stuff you've got. Focus on the things that they're interested in a pitch of no more than 3 minutes. Set the scene by saying, we're going to make a 3-minute pitch, and then we'd love to answer all your questions about the business. In that pitch, you want to cover the 4 things that investors are most interested in. 1, a huge unsolved pain. 2, a decent product. 3, your progress and validation. And 4, your team. Pain, product, progress, and people. A huge unsolved pain is about the opportunity for the investor. That's what they're interested in. The opportunity that you offer, not just the product that you've created. Tell them about the pain that you solve and how big that pain is. What's going wrong today? How much money is being lost or time or energy wasted through inefficiency? Patients suffering, machine downtime or CO2 emissions created. Then quantify how many people or organizations around the world are affected. Sometimes you can start with your own country, then your continent, and then the world. This gives one concrete marker about the market size. We're not getting into TAM and SAM and SOM and all that stuff right now. We're just giving them a feeling for a huge unsolved pain. And the huge is where the opportunity lies for the investor. Next, they want a decent product. Yeah, I say decent. They're not expecting it to be perfect. In fact, if they invest, they expect that product to change a lot. All they want to know is, have you understood the pain properly? And have you created a decent solution? And on top of this, have you connected with customers to validate that solution? Don't get caught up in all the details of the product. Tell them in a few sentences what it does, and especially what it improves. Energy waste cut by 20%, costs reduced by half, productivity doubled. Share your progress in your traction. If you're already selling, tell them. Have you got any well-known customers? What about user numbers? And have you hit a significant revenue milestone? And if you aren't selling yet, tell them what you've done to validate your solution with real customers. Have you done customer interviews, pilots, online experiments? Show that you've not just built your product, you've connected with potential users, that there's customers waiting on the doorstep for when your product is launched. And the team. Investors want to know why this team is the one to make this business happen. Which complementary skills do you have as founders? Have you worked together on previous projects? Do you have relevant industry experience? Or perhaps you have a common purpose? And if you've been through the startup journey before, doesn't matter if you failed or succeeded, don't forget to mention that. To recap, pain, product, progress, and people. That's the pitch. Now let's move on to the magic question. The secret to keeping their attention during the meeting is to transition from a pitch to a conversation. Here's how you do it using the magic question. After the 3-minute pitch, you say, well, that's the highlights. What would you like to know more about? Would you like to know more about the market, about the product, about the technology, perhaps a bit more about the team or our customers? What would you like to know more about? And here's my experience of what happens next. The answer to the magic question is different with every investor. You see, each person comes to the meeting with something different on their mind. Let me give you an example. I was in the process of raising money for my own startup, and I followed the strategy that I've mapped out. In a meeting with the first investor we met, after our 3-minute pitch, we gave the magic question. What would you like to know more about? As she said, well, surely this problem's covered by loads of other solutions. What's your competitive edge? This was the start of a 10-minute conversation about competition and why we're unique. After that, we got into other aspects of the business model, something about the product, what's our investment ask. We got into those because we'd already ticked off the number one question in the investor's mind. Then, in the next investor meeting, the conversation went completely differently. We gave our 3-minute pitch, asked the magic question, what would you like to know more about? This investor asked very specifically about customers and what we'd done to validate our product. He was really interested in how we'd tested it, what we'd done to find out what users did with our product, why they needed it, and what we would do to acquire new customers. This was certainly not a product discussion. In fact, in 30 minutes, he didn't ask a single question about the product. Instead, it was a discussion about customers, their needs, and the market. And then it evolved into the subject of competition. So let's just recap what happened there. Instead of broadcasting our view of the world for 90% of the meeting, we interacted with the investors and answered the questions that they wanted answering. We talked about the topics that were on the investors' mind, rather than following a pre-planned, long flow of a pitch focused on our interests. We entered their world. Just be sure you're well prepared to answer all those questions. I'll share the tool that will help you with that preparation a bit later. Spoiler alert, it's called the Pitch Canvas. We wrap up the meeting with the next steps. Keep an eye on the time. You want to have an outcome from the meeting, so make sure that there's time for that outcome. When you see there's 3 or 4 minutes left of the scheduled time for the meeting, you can say, hey, we're having a great conversation here. I'm really conscious of your time. How do you see the next steps? Shall we plan a follow-up meeting? Two scenarios will follow. Scenario 1, they say, yes, we're interested. Get the meeting planned, wrap things up, you're onto the path to getting funds. But let's face it, you need to be prepared for the second scenario, and that is, no, we're not interested. Don't despair. This is an opportunity to find out what they want. In most cases, they will tell you what you need to work on, and this can be really valuable advice. For example, they might say, well, you miss commercial expertise in your team. Come back when you've increased your user base to 10,000. Version 2.0 of your app is going to be launched at the end of the year. We're really interested to see how that goes. Now, this is where your character as a team kicks in. If this is an investor that you really want to be connected with, then focus ruthlessly on the feedback they've given you and make it happen. When you've done that, you can easily contact them and say, hey, we met 3 months ago and you gave us some feedback. We'd love to give you an update on what we've done since. Would you be open for that? And investors love that. Why? Because when you do this, the message to the investor is, we don't give up. Almost certainly, they will take another meeting with you. So there it is. A short pitch, the magic question, and next steps. So how can you be certain that you're ready for all their questions based on your magic question? Make sure you watch this video about the pitch canvas, which covers exactly the topics which all investors want to talk about. Good luck with your investor meetings and raising the money so that you can make something amazing happen.